Class 12th, Chapter 6 Evolution. Evolutionary biology is the study of history of life forms on Earth. What exactly is evolution? To understand the changes in flora and fauna that have occurred over millions of years on Earth, we must have an understanding of the context of origin of life, that is evolution of Earth, of stars, and indeed of the universe itself. What follows is the longest of all the construed and conjectured stories. This is the story of origin of life and evolution of life forms or biodiversity on planet Earth in the context of evolution of Earth and against the background of evolution of universe itself. 6.1 Origin of life. When we look at stars on a clear night sky, we are in a way looking back in time. Stellar distances are measured in light years. What we see today is an object whose emitted light started its journey millions of years back and from trillions of kilometers away and reaching our eyes now. However, when we see objects in our immediate surroundings, we see them instantly and hence in the present time. Therefore, when we see stars, we apparently are peeping into the past. The origin of life is considered a unique event in the history of universe. The universe is vast. Relatively speaking, the earth itself is almost only a speck. The universe is very old, almost 13.8 billion years old. Huge clusters of galaxies comprise the universe. Galaxies contain stars and clouds of gas and dust. Considering the size of universe, earth is indeed a speck. The Big Bang theory attempts to explain us the origin of universe. It talks of a singular huge explosion unimaginable in physical terms. The universe expanded and hence the temperature came down. Hydrogen and helium formed some time later. The gases condensed under gravitation and formed the galaxies of the present day universe. In the solar system of the Milky Way galaxy, Earth was supposed to have been formed about 4.5 billion years back. There was no atmosphere on early Earth. Water vapor, methane, carbon dioxide, and ammonia released from molten mass covered the surface. The UV rays from the sun broke up water into hydrogen and oxygen, and the lighter hydrogen escaped. Oxygen combined with ammonia and methane to form water, CO2, and others. The ozone layer was formed. As it cooled, the water vapor fell as rain to fill all the depressions and form oceans. Life appeared 500 million years after the formation of Earth, that is almost 4 billion years back. Did life come from outer space? Some scientists believe that it came from outside. Early Greek thinkers thought units of life called spores were transferred to different planets including Earth. Panspermia is still a favorite idea for some astronomers. For a long time, it was also believed that life came out of decaying and rotting matter like straw, mud, etc. This was the theory of spontaneous generation. Louis Pasteur, by careful experimentation, demonstrated that life comes only from pre existing life. He showed that in pre sterilized flasks, life did not come from killed yeast, while in another flask open to air, new living organisms arose from killed yeast. Spontaneous generation theory was dismissed once and for all. However, this did not answer how the first life form came on Earth. Operin of Russia and Haldane of England proposed that the first form of life could have come from pre-existing non-living organic molecules, example RNA, protein, etc. And that formation of life was preceded by chemical evolution, that is, formation of diverse organic molecules from inorganic constituents. The conditions on Earth were high temperature, volcanic storms, reducing atmosphere containing CH4, NH3, etc. In 1953, S.L. Miller, an American scientist, created similar conditions in a laboratory scale, figure 6.1. He created electric discharge in a closed flask containing CH4, H2, NH3 and water vapor at 800 degrees Celsius. He observed formation of amino acids. In similar experiments, others observed formation of sugars, nitrogen bases, pigment and fats. Analysis of meteorite content also revealed similar compounds indicating that similar processes are occurring elsewhere in space. With this limited evidence, the first part of conjectured story, that is chemical evolution, was more or less accepted. We have no idea about how the first self-replicating metabolic capsule of life arose. The first non-cellular forms of life could have originated 3 billion years back. They would have been giant molecules, RNA, protein, polysaccharides, etc. These capsules reproduced their molecules perhaps. The first cellular form of life did not possibly originate till about 2000 million years ago. These were probably single cells. All life forms were in water environment only. This version of a biogenesis, that is the first form of life, arose slowly through evolutionary forces from non-living molecules, is accepted by majority. However, once formed, how the first cellular forms of life could have evolved into the complex biodiversity of today is the fascinating story that will be discussed below. 6.2 Evolution of Life Forms, a Theory. Conventional religious literature tells us about the theory of special creation. This theory has three connotations. One, that all living organisms, that is, species or types, that we see today were created as such. Number two, that the diversity was always the same since creation and will be the same in future also. Number three, that Earth is about 4,000 years old. All these ideas were strongly challenged during the 19th century. Based on observations made during a sea voyage in a sail ship called HMS Beagle around the world, Charles Darwin concluded that existing living forms share similarities to varying degrees not only among themselves but also with life forms that existed millions of years ago. Many such life forms do not exist anymore. There had been extinctions of different life forms in the years gone by, just as new forms of life arose at different periods of history of Earth. There has been gradual evolution of life forms. Any population has built-in variation in characteristics. Those characteristics which enabled some to survive better in a natural conditions, that is climate, food, physical factors, etc., would outbreed others that are less endured to survive under such natural conditions. Another word used is fitness of the individual or population. The fitness, according to Darwin, refers ultimately and only to reproductive fitness. Hence, those who are better fit in an environment leave more progeny than others. These, therefore, will survive more and hence are selected by nature. He called it natural selection and implied it as a mechanism of evolution. Let us also remember that Alfred Wallace, a naturalist who worked in a Malay archipelago, had also come to similar conclusions around the same time. In due course of time, apparently new types of organisms are recognizable. All the existing life forms share similarities and share common ancestors. However, these ancestors were present at different periods in the history of Earth, epochs, periods, and eras. The geological history of Earth closely correlates with the biological history of Earth. A common permissible conclusion is that Earth is very old, not thousands of years as was thought earlier, but billions of years old. 6.3 What are the evidences for evolution? Evidence that evolution of life forms has indeed taken place on Earth has come from many quarters. Fossils are remains of hard parts of life forms found in rocks. Rocks form sediments, and a cross section of Earth's crust indicates the arrangement of sediments one over the other during the long history of Earth. Different aged rock sediments contain fossils of different life forms who probably died during the formation of the particular sediment. Some of them appear similar to modern organisms, figure 6.2. They represent extinct organisms, example dinosaurs. A study of fossils and different sedimentary layers indicates the geological period in which they existed. The study showed that life forms varied over time and certain life forms are restricted to certain geological time spans. Hence, new forms of life have arisen at different times in the history of Earth. All this is called paleontological evidence. Do you remember how the ages of the fossils are calculated? Do you recollect the method of radioactive dating and the principles behind the procedure? Embryological support for evolution was also proposed by Ernst Haeckel based upon the observation of certain features during embryonic stage common to all vertebrates that are absent in adult. For example, the embryos of all vertebrates, including human, develop a row of vestigial gill slit just behind the head, but it is a functional organ only in fish and not found in any other adult vertebrates. However, this proposal was disapproved on careful study performed by Carl Ernst von Baer. He noted that embryos never pass through the adult stages of other animals. Comparative anatomy and morphology shows similarities and differences among organisms of today and those that existed years ago. Such similarities can be interpreted to understand whether common ancestors were shared or not. For example, whales, bats, cheetahs, and human, all mammals, share similarities in the pattern of bones of forelimbs, figure 6.3b. Though these forelimbs perform different functions in these animals, they have similar anatomical structure. All of them have humerus, radius, ulna, carpals, metacarpals, and phalanges in their forelimbs. Hence, in these animals, the same structure developed along different directions due to adaptation to different needs. This is divergent evolution, and these structures are homologous. Homology indicates common ancestry. Other examples are vertebrate hearts or brains. In plants also, the thorns and tendrils of Bougainvillea and Cucurbita represent homology. Figure 6.3a. Homology is based on divergent evolution, whereas analogy refers to a situation exactly opposite. Wings of butterfly and of birds look alike. They are not anatomically similar structures, though they perform similar functions. Hence, analogous structures are a result of convergent evolution, different structures evolving for the same function and hence having similarity. Other examples of analogy are the eye of octopus and of mammals, or the flippers of penguins and dolphins. One can say that it is the similar habitat that has resulted in selection of similar adaptive features in different groups of organisms but towards the same function. Sweet potato, that is root modification, and potato stem modification is another example for analogy. In the same line of argument, similarities in proteins and genes performing a given function among diverse organisms give clues to common ancestry. These biochemical similarities point to the same shared ancestry as structural similarities among diverse organisms. Man has bred selected plants and animals for agriculture, horticulture, sport, or security. Man has domesticated many wild animals and crops. This intensive breeding program has created breeds that differ from other breeds, example dogs, but still are of the same group. It is argued that if within hundreds of years man could create new breeds, could not nature have done the same over millions of years? Another interesting observation supporting evolution by natural selection comes from England. In a collection of moths made in 1850s, that is before industrialization set in, it was observed that there were more white-winged moths on tree than dark-winged or melanized moths. However, in the collection carried out from the same area but after industrialization, that is in 1920, there were more dark-winged moths in the same area, that is the proportion was reversed. The explanation put forth for this observation was that predators will spot a moth against a contrasting background. During post-industrialization period, the tree trunks became dark due to industrial smoke and soot. Under this condition, the white-winged moth did not survive due to predators. Dark-winged or melanized moths survived. Before industrialization set in, thick growth of almost a white colored lichen covered the trees. In that background, the white winged moth survived, but the dark colored moth were picked out by predators. Do you know that lichens can be used as industrial pollution indicators? They will not grow in areas that are polluted. Hence, moths that were able to camouflage themselves, that is, hide in the background, survived. Figure 6.4. This understanding is supported by the fact that in areas where industrialization did not occur, example in rural areas, the count of melanic moths was low. This showed that in a mixed population, those that can better adapt survive an increase in population size. Remember that no variant is completely wiped out. Similarly, excess use of herbicides, pesticides, etc. has only resulted in selection of resistant varieties in a much lesser time scale. This is also true for microbes against which we employ antibiotics or drugs against eukaryotic organisms or cells. Hence, resistant organisms or cells are appearing in a time scale of months or years and not centuries. These are examples of evolution by anthropogenic action. This also tells us that evolution is not a directed process in the sense of determinism. It is a stochastic process based on chance events in nature and chance mutation in the organisms.